Okay, so now what we're gonna do is start our heel flap. It's gonna be amazing. So a heel flap and gusset construction is really fun because you start with this piece of flat, just this flat panel. So you're gonna be knitting back and forth. Now you were knitting in the round, and we're gonna put some of these stitches, just leave them on hold, and then other stitches we're gonna continue working flat. So here's how we're going to do this, or how I'm going to do this. You can do this however you want. You can continue using whatever needles you're using. Use your DPNs, use your 9-inch circulars, use your magic loop long circulars. It doesn't matter. I prefer doing the heel flap on my DPNs just because I really like it that way, and I can do it that way because I have the materials and all of that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to purl across. We're going to start working flat. So we're going to go from this where our working yarn is, and we're going to purl across half the stitches. So for me, that's 32 stitches because this is a 64 stitch circumference sock. So I'm going to use a contrast heel here, just like this one, and make my way across. And what I do on the edges of my heel flap is I slip the first stitch because I find those to be way easier to pick up. So even though this is a different color than my heel flap, I'm still going to slip that one because it's going to be easier for me to pick up later. And I'm going to purl my way all the way across here, add my new yarn. When I add yarn, I just put it over the needle and loop it through, right? So we're just going to do that. And then later I will pull those ends to where I want them to be, because if you pull them now, you can have a really tidy end situation here, but they're still going to move around. So you'll have to do it again later anyway. So we're going to purl across 32 stitches for me. If you've got a 72 stitch circumference sock, you're going to be doing that for 36. And of course, with any other stitch count, you'll just want to do the math on what half of that is for your sock. Okay, so we've purled 32 across, so I have half my stitches on this DPN, and I have half my stitches still on this 9-inch circular. Now, I'm just going to keep it on the 9-inch circular because it just holds it well. It doesn't move around. It's gonna stick on there well, and I'll just deal with that and pick it back up when I'm done with the heel flap. So now we've got our right side to do. Because we're working flat, we've got a right side and a wrong side we're going to be dealing with. So with this knit row, I'm going to again slip that first stitch, and that's going to start the pattern of my slip stitch heel. So we're going to slip that one, knit, slip, knit, and so on throughout the whole heel flap. So you just keep slip knit every other one. And if you mess up, that's okay. A lot of these heels, the reason the pattern is there is for reinforcing the heel. So it doesn't have to be perfect to be functional. Now, is it very satisfying to see these all in a row? Yes. Yes, it is. But if you mess it up, it's not the end of the world. There are very few things in knitting and in life that can't be repaired or redeemed. So we are going to just roll with that, right? We're all going to breathe. So if this is a new thing for you, that's okay. One step at a time, right? That's how we do anything, is just one step at a time. And the more you do any project, whether it's socks or you know, sweaters or anything that you want to have more mastery over. It just takes practice. And I really don't like that, but that's just how it is. So last slip and then last knit of that one that I slipped last row, right? So I'm going to tidy up that tail so that my loop doesn't, oh, sorry, so that my loop doesn't look crazy there. And this one too. There we go. So now we're just going to purl across again and then do, and with the purl side, I still slip that first stitch. So slip one, purl to the end, then slip knit all the way across. And you're just going to do that over and over again. You're going to slip one stitch and purl across, and then you're going to slip knit all the way across and do it back and forth until you have something that is the right size for your heel. Now, standard knitting sock patterns will generally suggest that if you have 64 stitches across, that means you have 32 stitches back here, and they'll generally advise that you do 32 rows, which will give you 16 slip stitches to count. You can count these little stitches in here that are your every row stitches, or you can use a little row counter if you want. I love these things. They're really fabulous if you find yourself zoning out while you're doing something that seems really simple to you, or if you just, like me, think to yourself, I need to remember I'm on row 3, and then you have to make dinner and you come back and you don't remember where you were. So you can use your row counters, you can use digital row counters, you can use these stitches. I personally just count the slip stitches because I know however many slip stitches I have is half as many rows as I've actually done. And I add 4 more rows on mine because I have a bigger instep than patterns normally call for. So I do 18, not 16, I do 18 slip stitches is what I count there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to purl back across and do my slip one, knit one, 18 times. And then we'll come back, and this is where the magic sauce is, guys. This is the part that's, if you've done socks over and over again, this is the part you probably aren't as familiar with. So this little heel turn, it's magical. Heel turns in general are magical, but this one is my favorite. Just the way it can travel and keep all of that in line is really nice. All right, and here are my 18 rows of, or 18 slip stitches, 36 rows of my heel flap. So what we're going to do is we're going to start our heel turn on the wrong side. So I'm going to actually go one more. I'm going to have 37 rows, right? So we're going to go with one more slip stitch because I like to start my heel turns on the wrong side. I just find that easier to do. If you are more comfortable with the heel turn of your choice, that's totally fine. Just as you're moving along, this is the part that's kind of the secret sauce. So be sure to pay attention to what we're going to do in the next step so that you can modify it how you would like to. Okay, so that is our heel flap all done, and we're going to start on our heel turn. And you'll notice I haven't cut anything at this point. I'm just going to keep this connected, even though my heel turn is going to end down here. That's okay. I've got it all sorted. And if for some reason your remaining working yarn for your foot is over here, that's okay. You can always fix it by just picking up where you were going around. Some people will cut it and put it back over here, but you actually don't need to do that. You can just move your way around the circle again, because since it's a spiral, it's not going to be exactly even no matter what you do. When you're knitting flat, that's totally different. And that's actually the magic of the heel turn, is the symmetrical nature of the heel turn. But when you're going in the round, it's always going to be one off, always. There's just no way for you to make it exactly symmetrical because of the nature of knitting in a spiral. Now, what I'm going to show you here is the French heel turn. I like the French heel turn. It's a little boxier than a lot of other heel turns, and I think it's just much more similar to the shape of a heel rather than it being a complete triangle. If you've got a thinner foot, you might like it to be pointier there, but I think that just looks more like the actual shape of a heel, and it fits me really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something that is short rows. What that means is we're going to be knitting, and then we're going to be stopping and turning back. The purpose of this is to make a symmetrical curve in this fabric, right? So how do we get from this just flat panel to something that's back into a tube? And that's the magic of the heel turn here, right? So I love heel turns. Whenever I complete one, I just have this really great sense of satisfaction. I'm sure you can tell because I just keep talking about it that I really love them. And you're trying to center your curvature in your heel flap. So you'll go past center on your first one, and then you'll be setting up your center stitches. So I know that first row might be confusing, or you're not sure if you're doing it right. Just follow these directions and you'll see how magical it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip one, and then I'm going to purl 18 because I have 32 stitches back here. That's what I'm going to be doing. If you have more or less stitches, you're going to be purling a little bit more or a little bit less. So I think with 60 stitches, you would be purling 16, and with 56 stitches, you would be purling 16, and with 72 stitches, you'd be purling to 20. But here, we're going to be purling to 18 because we're trying to overshoot the center of our fabric here. And I like starting on my purl side row for this heel flap. Number one, because it gives me an extra row for my instep, which is great. And number two, it just makes it a lot easier to understand what I'm doing on the right side row when we turn it around. So we've got slip 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then we're going to purl 2 together right here. And then we're just going to purl 1. And you're going to notice that there's going to be a gap in your work. That's purposeful. You actually want that there because it'll help you pay attention to where you need to do your next purl 2 together. So turn your work even though you're not done with this part, and we're going to slip this stitch again. We're always just slipping that first stitch because it makes it a little less gappy here for the turn. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay attention to these slip stitches, okay? I slipped that one just because it helps with that gap, but then I can see because of my purl 2 together, I want to slip that one too. See how it lines up with that slip? Which is fine because it's coming from, your work is still coming from over here. So on the back, it's still only as if you slipped one. So we're going to slip one and then go 7 stitches over. So this says knit 7 because you're just going to pay attention to where these slip stitches are, not because you're actually knitting all of those, right? So we're going to slip, slip, knit, slip, knit, slip, knit. So you can see the gap in the work there. That really helps with counting your stitches. So we've got slip, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'm going to do my SS, oh, I should have slipped that one, 7, and then I'm going to do my SSK here, slip, slip, and knit, decrease, and then I'm going to knit 1. So we can see that that's the center of the fabric here, right? These 8 stitches, sorry. So we can see that this is the center of the fabric. These 10 stitches are going to be in the center, and we're going to be working back and forth to resolve these gaps in the fabric. So then on the purl side, just like before, we just slip 1 and then we purl the rest. So we're going to slip 1 and then purl to where that 1 stitch before that gap is. So we're going to pay attention here, purl all the way across to that place. And here we go, and there it is. There's my gap between my stitches, right? So I want to resolve that gap. So that's where my next purl 2 together is going to be. And then we're going to purl 1 again and leave that gap so that we can come back and purl these 2 together next time. So we're going to turn again, and we're going to mark, we're going to see where these stitches, these center stitches are our compass here. So we've got a slip, knit, slip. So we're going to do slip, knit, and then slip, knit, and so on until you get to that other gap. Now the number that you need to slip at the beginning changes from 1 to 2 depending on, there we go, we've got our gap there. Depending on which row you're on, it goes every other. And you'll notice that with practice, that you'll just be able to tell from your center stitches where you're supposed to be going. So then we did our SSK and our knit 1, and that's where our next gap is going to be. So we're just going to keep doing this. We're going to go back again, slip this first one to make that gap less noticeable, and then we're going to purl across to our stitch before the gap, and the purl side is just like how you would do on any other heel flap. You just have to pay attention to that knit side to have them travel across the heel turn here. And there's our gap, right? So we're going to purl 2 together and purl 1. So you're going back and forth over and over this fabric because you want to achieve this curvature. See how we're going? We started here and we're going back and forth this way to make this curvature there. So we got to slip that first one, and then where are we at? We've got slip, knit, slip. So we're going to slip 1, and like I said, it's okay that we're slipping 2 because this is still on the back. Oop, this is still on the back of here. So our fabric is still being reinforced just as if it were 1 slip. Then we'll knit, slip, knit back to where our gap is. So then we're just going to keep going back and forth until we've resolved these stitches on the side to the very end. Okay, and here we are for our last gap here on the purl side. This is my favorite part. Here we go. We're going to do our last purl two together, and we're going to do the end of this. And now is actually where we're going to just be doing the right side of the fabric again. We have to resolve this one last gap on this side, but after that, we're going to pick everything up and get back into our knitting in the round. So we're going to slip this one. Here we go. Slip, knit, slip, knit, slip, knit. Okay. And then we're going to do our slips and knits all the way across to our gap. Go. And then SSK. And knit. And my goodness, there it is. There's the heel turn. We did it, guys. Oh, look at that. That one's so cute. Now, take a breath. You did a great job. I know your sock looks like an alien right now, but it's a cute alien for sure. And if you want to be done with this contrast color, what I do is I hang on to it for a second. Don't worry, there's so little of this, but we're still going to make it with what my plans are. I'm going to pick up stitches with this side so that I meet this working yarn again over here. If you don't want that, if you like to have just your entire main color back to your sock, you could actually start knitting from here and go around. It does not matter. It's the differences are infinitesimal. So we're going to, but I just want to, I like being able to put these two ends through the same situation. It's easiest for me. So I'm going to pick up these stitches, and that's why I had you slip the sides, because these are going to be way easier to pick up for me than garter bumps are going to be. So if you need to, take a breath. You did a great job. If you want to jump right in, awesome. We're going to keep going. If you need a second because you just performed the magic of a heel turn, go ahead and get a drink. Post a picture online. You can do a little hashtag, tag me in it. That sounds great. And then we will proceed to the next step, which is picking up stitches for the gusset, which is a fancy word for this business happening right here.